Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, November 22nd, 2013, the 50th anniversary of the Jfk Assassination. I'll give you my personal views on this at the end of the newscast. But first up, my top story is coming right out of the Middle East, and it is about the negotiations involving Iran's nuclear program. Now, the negotiations are happening in Geneva. The countries involved, Russia, China, U.S., France, Germany, and Iran. Now, the West wants Iran to stop its nuclear program, stop enriching uranium, do not put a nuclear power plant online that can give Iran nuclear material for a bomb or bombs. Iran says, we're not backing down one iota. We've spent billions of dollars on this program. We have the right for nuclear energy and the peaceful production of nuclear energy. The talks in Geneva have hit a major snag. I don't see how this gets worked out peacefully when they are that far apart. Stop the program, continue the program. Meanwhile, two countries that were foes have teamed up, Israel and Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia is, of course, a Muslim country, but they are Sunni Muslim. Iran is Shia Muslim. Israel and Saudi Arabia are very concerned over Iran getting a bomb. Of course, Iran says it doesn't want to make a bomb, but neither here nor there. That's what the rub's all about. They're most fearful of Iran having nuclear weapons, which, by the way, Saudi Arabia just bought nuclear weapons from Pakistan. And here's the headline with them teaming up to attack Iran if there's a bad deal, and this is from Israel. Israel says bad Iran deal will bring war. Not a maybe, not might, not could, will bring war. On the other side of the aisle, you have the Iranians, and they say, Iran calls Israel rabid dog as talks on nukes resume. We're talking about resuming in Geneva, and everybody was hopeful they could work out a deal and avoid war. I don't see how war is avoided. If Israel attacks Iran, Iran has a plan for a counterattack. It would no doubt involve attacking Saudi oil fields to cut off their money. Saudi Arabia, who just purchased nuclear weapons, wouldn't they fire them back into Iran? Iran would have Hamas from the south fire rockets northward into Israel. Iran would have Hezbollah in the north fire rockets southward into Israel. Iran would no doubt attack the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. The U.S. would certainly come to the rescue of Saudi Arabia. They still trade oil in dollars. Iran would no doubt shut off the Strait of Hormuz, where just a little less than a fifth of the world's crude oil travels through this narrow sea passageway. Oil prices would skyrocket, interest rates would go haywire, an already fragile world economy would sink, banks would go under, people would lose tons of money all over the world. The whole world would be thrust into a disastrous situation. I think World War III would ensue. Russia and China, who also are involved in the talks, would come in on the side of Iran. It will be a colossal global mess, and I do not see how this, as I said earlier, it's going to be settled peacefully. This is one of the most underreported stories ever because it does involve the possibility of World War III, and it certainly is underreported in the United States of America. We are way off the mark on what we need to be looking at. Meanwhile, in the Senate, they just changed the rules on filibuster. They say they're going to do it only for judicial nominees, but a lot of people say this is a nuclear option. That's what they call it. And that, the Senate, which is supposed to be a deliberative body, that, this and everything the Senate does, including treaties and laws and other, nominees, all the way up to the Supreme Court, eventually, the ruling majority party is going to rule. There's going to be no filibustering to make a point like Ted Cruz did with Obamacare. There's going to be no filibustering to block or slow down a presidential nomination. That's all gone. And I think this is terrible Now, most Democrats were against this back in the Bush administration when the Senate threatened to do this. When the Republicans had control of the Senate, they didn't do it. They didn't do the nuclear option. But now the Democratic senators who were against it are now for it. And that, the Republicans are painted as the party of obstruction. But this is the way our government works. Our government has a system of checks and balances. It's not my way or the highway, even if you're in the minority. I think this is a dreadful idea. I don't want either party in the Senate to have this kind of control. But when the Republicans are elected back into the Senate, I said it, there's no way that the Democrats are going to hold the Senate with Obamacare. In order for them to hold the Senate, Obamacare would have to be a smashing, stunning success, and the overwhelming majority of people must be getting a better deal. But that's not going to happen. You can't have that. You can't insure 45, 50 million people for free. It has to cost the rest of the people with insurance. Now, I know that's not the way it was sold, but that's what has to happen in this plan. And I think this plan is working actually beautifully, just the way they wanted to. But there is no way that I think either party ought to be doing this. No way. But after 2014, when the Republicans win back the Senate, and I'm neither a Democrat or a Republican, but this is a pretty easy one to call, the Democrats will be sorry they ever did this, really. It mutes the minority party, and nobody should be muted. Even if they're not in charge, even if they're not in the majority, nobody should be muted in our democracy. It's a sad day. J.P. Morgan has agreed to pay a record, here you go, finally, it's official, $13 billion for toxic loans. They're toxic. Here's the way the USA Today newspaper, this article, couched it. The nation's largest bank admitted it knew that residential mortgage-backed securities that it marketed did not comply with underwriting guidelines and weren't fit for sale. They packaged up liar loans. They sold liar loans, no doc loans. They packaged them up into securities. They said they were equal to the risk-free return of U.S. Treasuries, and then they turned toxic, as it says right here, toxic loans. And you know what is shameful and outrageous? How nobody in the mainstream media is demanding people go to jail. I mean, this is the way the newspaper, couched this story. They said that it did not comply with underwriting guidelines and weren't fit for sale. Why the soft reporting? Could it be that J.P. Morgan has a business and an investment relationship with Gannett, who owns USA Today? That wouldn't that wouldn't skew their reporting and make it soft, would it? The newspaper did say that this is a civil deal, does not absolve J.P. Morgan from any criminal prosecution. But do you really think that any top person at J.P. Morgan is going to be prosecuted criminally, let alone be sent to jail? I mean, Bernie Madoff was, but when you think about it, what he stole were billions. These guys, ultimately the big bankers, stole trillions, in my humble opinion. And then here's another, just a more ongoing financial fraud, where they have a probe for the targeting, the rigging of the currency markets. That's a $5.3 trillion currency market. And, nobody goes to jail, just pay fines. Can you imagine going to the store and stealing, a few $100s worth of stuff, walking out, getting caught and saying, oh, hey, my shopping didn't comply with, good shopping guidelines. Let me just pay a fine. No, that would never happen. You'd go to jail. But the bankers, for some reason, we don't prosecute them. We just fine them. And I think that's a major problem that'll keep the economy from ever recovering. You've got to get rid of the fraud and the malfeasance and wrongdoing and remove people from high positions and send people to jail to really have a robust financial recovery so people trust the system. And this builds mistrust in the system, and that is bad for any financial system. Well, the Obamacare debacle is going to continue to be an unfolding disaster, an increasing unfolding disaster. More people, millions have already lost their policies. More people are going to lose their policies, and they're going to end up buying policies that cost more, that higher premiums, higher deductibles, higher co-pays. You're going to get more for less. That's just the way it works. That's just the way it's supposed to work. You can't insure, 45, 50 million people who cannot or will not buy insurance for free. The rest of the population, through taxes or through higher premium, have to pay for it. The subsidies don't come from a subsidy tree. They have to come from somewhere. A friend of mine's daughter just got a Obamacare plan for $12 a month. Excuse me? That's right, $12 a month. She's close to the poverty line. If it's any consolation, she doesn't really care for Obama, but she likes the policy. But this is the problem. Somebody has to pay for somebody else getting a $12 a month policy. And, the Obamacare policies have free everything. Everything's covered. It's just not the way to do this. There should just be, like a catastrophic policy. And if you get in a car wreck or you get cancer, we'll take care of you, but it doesn't pay, but the policy shouldn't pay for everything free under the sun. Somebody has to pay for it. There's nothing free. Somebody has to pay for it. Finally, the Jfk assassination. I was in the second grade. I was 7 years old when this happened. And when it happened, I think it was on a Thursday. It was on a weekday, but we all got sent home from school. Boom, bam, just boom. Put your stuff down. You're going home right now. What happened? We got sent home from school. So I was watching the coverage. It was on wall-to-wall on the 3 networks. And it was on wall-to-wall. And, I was sitting watching the coverage, and up pops Lee Harvey Oswald. And they took him into custody. And what he said, live, was, "I'm a patsy." I'm a patsy, is what Lee Harvey Oswald said. I was sitting next to my dad. I looked at my dad and said, "Dad, what does that mean, I'm a patsy?" My dad stopped for a minute, and he said, "He's saying he didn't do it." And you know what? I don't think he did it. I don't believe in the magic bullet theory. I don't think you could fire a bolt action that fast. I don't think Kennedy was shot in the back of the head and it came out the front. The USA Today, hats off to them. I criticize them sometimes, but I also pat them on the back. And this is written by film director Oliver Stone, who did the Kennedy conspiracy movie. He says, deniers of JFK conspiracy are in denial. One of those people is Bill O'Reilly, who wrote the book Killing Kennedy. I mean, it was full of, what was going on at the time and all that, but ultimately it just parroted the government story, which is ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. You got to believe them. One bullet, went through Kennedy and went through Kennedy, went down and went up and went to side, cuckoo. According to this is a wonderful, you ought to get this. Look this up online. Deniers of JFK's conspiracy are in denial. Oliver Stone. And Oliver Stone points out just one thing after another about why the story is ludicrous and crazy. For example, in a government investigation, in a government where they revealed that 40 different witnesses saw the back of Kennedy's head was blown off, which meant the bullet came through the front and pow, came out the back, not through the back, shot from behind, and came out the front. And then you have to believe the magic bullet. You should read this. Anybody who believes that one lone gunman shot JFK in Dallas on the 22nd of November, 1963, ludicrous. You want me to believe it was one guy? I mean, it's not a national security thing, right? Just one guy with a gun, right? Here's the one thing that you can do for me that will pretty much seal it whether or not he did it. Release all the autopsy, all the presidential photos, release them all the negatives, release everything. Just a guy with a gun, right? This is the only president to be shot in the head since Lincoln, and since then, we had presidential photographers, we have autopsy photos, they took photos. Release them all. And unseal all the records. Unseal all the records. No redaction. Unseal everything. Just a guy with a gun, right? I'll never believe Kennedy was shot by Oswald. I don't even think Oswald pulled the trigger to that cheap bolt-action rifle. I don't think he ever even pulled the trigger. But he knew he was a patsy when he was in custody. He knew it too late. That's the way I see it. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments and donations. I'm Greg Hunter. Have a nice weekend.